I want you to think briefly about one thing. What is money? Not philosophically, but in a very practical sense. What makes money money? It works everywhere. You don't need permission to spend it. No one can tell you what to buy. No one can make it expire. No one can shut it off. And no one is watching when you give it to someone. That is money. That's what it has always been, from coins in ancient Rome to the cash in your pocket. But what if I told you that what is currently being built in Europe, the digital euro, no longer has a single one of these characteristics? That it can be tracked, restricted, programmed so that it only works for certain things in certain places until a certain date, and that it can be switched off. A German economics professor, Professor Christian Rieck from Frankfurt, game theorist, best-selling author, he has a term for it. He calls it prince's money, money that belongs to the ruler, not to you. And he says if the digital euro goes wrong, it won't just be prince's money, it will be prince's money on steroids. In the next 10 to 15 minutes, I'll show you exactly what he means by that and why it's more important than anything else currently happening in the financial sector. But this isn't just a problem panic video, because once you understand what is happening to money, what it is becoming, you also see why certain systems, certain approaches for everyday spending suddenly make a lot more sense. The solution exists, but first you need to understand the problem on a level that most people never reach. Let's get started. The digital euro project has been running since 2023. The ECB has completed the preparation phase in 2025. Pilot tests have begun. The final legislation is expected in 2026. Mandatory acceptance by merchants starting in 2028 or 2029. The EU Parliament still has to approve it. But let's be realistic. No parliament is going to stop a project into which the ECB has invested years and hundreds of millions. The question is not whether the digital euro is coming. The question is which digital euro, and that depends on 3 design decisions. So Professor Rieck breaks it down simply. 1 is good, 1 is bad, and 1 would be catastrophic. Decision 1. Distribution through commercial banks. Good. The digital euro is supposed to be circulated through commercial banks, not directly from the ECB to citizens. That sounds like a boring technical detail, but it isn't. It's the most important structural safeguard in the entire system. Why? In our current monetary system, commercial banks serve as a counterbalance to the state. When new money is created, it happens through lending. And lending requires collateral, real economic performance behind the money. Your house, your business, your future productive capacity. The bank checks that there is something real behind every euro that is created. This prevents the state from simply printing money at will. The private banking system functions as a small filter, as a control instance between the state and the money supply. If the ECB could issue digital euros directly to citizens without banks, then this filter would simply disappear. The state could create, distribute, and control money without any independent oversight. Professor Rieck calls this Fürstengeld, prince's money. Money over which the creator has total control. So the fact that commercial banks remain in the system is actually good news. It preserves the separation of powers in the monetary system. Decision number 2. No anonymity. But here it gets worse. The digital euro is not supposed to be anonymous. Every transaction will be traceable. Who paid whom, how much, when, and for what? The argument is always the same. Counterterrorism, money laundering, organized crime. Yes, because there are a few bad actors, suddenly all citizens have to be monitored. Professor Rieck says very clearly on this point, this is a path I will not follow, and I agree with him 100%. Just think about what anonymity in money actually means. It is the ability to be economically active without having to ask an authority for permission. Historically, anonymous money was cash, that which made the emergence of a citizenry possible in the midst of life itself, allowed free cities to arise, because people were able to trade freely without the feudal lord knowing about every transaction. Citizens could say, we'll do this our way, and you can't stop us from doing so. Stop us. Take away anonymous money, and you take away this freedom. Every purchase becomes a data point, every payment a record. The EU's own data protection authority has warned that this system could identify and track all transactions. And here is the absurdity. We live in a society that makes a huge fuss about cookie banners on websites, but sleepwalks into a monetary system in which every single payment you make is permanently stored. Riek's position: the digital euro must be anonymous, like digital cash. It can be limited in amount for all I care, but the fundamental property of anonymity must be preserved. Whether this battle has already been lost, he says, remains to be seen, but the fight must be fought. Decision number 3. Programmability would be catastrophic if it happens. And now the thing that changes everything. There is a crucial distinction that almost no one outside of monetary theory understands. And even people who work in this field confuse it. I myself underestimated it for years. Programmable payments are not the same as programmable money. Programmable payments mean that you can tie automations to transactions. For example, smart contracts. You pay for a vacation rental and the door opens automatically. You set up a recurring payment that is tied to a condition. That's programmable payments. That is a layer above the money itself. All right? Useful, not dangerous. Programmable money, on the other hand, is something completely different. It means the money itself carries rules within it, what it can do. The money has built-in properties that determine where it works, when it works, and ultimately what you are allowed to buy with it. And here we have to talk about history. The princely money. What history teaches us about it? In medieval Europe, during the feudal system, local rulers, that is, princes, had the right to mint coins. And they had a certain power that most people today have never even heard of. The coin recall. This is how it worked. Citizens saved coins, built up reserves, and planned for the future. And then the prince would simply declare, these coins are worthless from today. Bring them here, and we will give you new ones in exchange. Of course, at a worse exchange rate. The real assets, the food, the land, the labor, did not disappear. They simply passed into the possession of the prince. So, legalized theft through monetary manipulation, that is princely money. Money where the issuer can change the rules after you have earned it. And now comes the crucial point. Look at what programmable money makes possible. Expiration dates. The government issues economic stimulus payments. Let's say pandemic aid. But the money is programmed to expire after 6 months. If you haven't spent it by then, it's gone. This is the modern version of coin recall. The prince declares your coins worthless. Earmarking. Your money is programmed so that you can only buy approved categories. Healthy food? Yes. Cigarettes? Sorry, this money doesn't work for that. Who defines what's healthy? Who defines what's approved? The issuer? The prince. Geofencing? Your money is programmed to only work within a certain radius around your place of residence, for example. You travel to another region and your money simply stops working. Sorry, this euro is not valid here. Targeted allocation. The state decides which sectors need subsidies. Your money is channeled. It can flow to approved industries, but not to others. Today it's renewable energy. Tomorrow it's arms production. The prince decides where your money goes. So a programmable euro is not money in the sense we've known it so far. It's more like a kind of voucher that you can sometimes redeem at the prince's discretion. In summary, if this goes wrong, digital central bank money can develop into prince's money on steroids. Everything that the medieval rulers could declare money worthless, control what their subjects could buy, impose restrictions on where wealth could flow, but now with digital precision. In real time, on the scale of an entire continent. What can be abused will be abused. Now, I want to be fair. Professor Riek is that as well. Most of the people working on the digital euro don't want to build surveillance and control systems. They're technicians. They solve design problems. They think about efficiency and interoperability. But that's exactly the danger. If you focus on what is technically possible and works well under current conditions, you lose sight of what could be abused under different circumstances. And here is the rule, let's call it a democratic fundamental principle. What can be abused by the state will sooner or later be abused by the state. That's why democracies have a separation of powers. Not because current governments are tyrants, but because the system must be built in such a way that future abuse is structurally impossible. You don't build a money system capable of surveillance and just hope that no one abuses it. You build a system in which abuse is impossible by design. The usual counter-argument, but there are criminals, money laundering, terrorism. Yes, those things exist. But the idea that because a few people commit crimes, all citizens must be financially transparent, that does not belong in a free society. We have to accept certain risks because we know that this freedom is an incredibly important asset. Think about the direction this is heading. Cash payments over 10,000 euros are prohibited. Starting July 2027, an asset register is being built in Frankfurt, recording everything over 200,000 euros. Digital euro, no anonymity, mandatory acceptance for merchants. And now add programmability, a form of money that can be tracked, restricted, expire, geofenced, and earmarked for specific purposes. Controlled by an institution that is not elected, the ECB. The business magazine Wirtschaftswoche calls the digital euro a poisoned apple. That, the Cato Institute says, the buffer between the individual and the state is disappearing. The EU Parliament's rapporteur, who is leading the legislation, himself says it seems to be the solution to none of these problems. 58% of Europeans say they don't even want to use it. And yet it's still coming. And by the way, one more point. Cash absolutely must continue to exist as a parallel system, remain, not just because of anonymity, but because of resilience. Remember Spain. For an entire day, there was no electricity anywhere. Imagine if there had been no cash. Nothing would have worked. Now imagine that in a case of national defense, power plants attacked, the power grid down, a purely digital money system, completely paralyzed. So where do we stand? 2026? The system is being rebuilt around you. Cash is being restricted. Assets are being registered. A new form of money is being designed where, if things go wrong, the state can see every transaction, restrict what you buy, let your balance expire, and confine your spending to approved zones. The ideal outcome would be a digital euro that works like digital cash. Anonymous, unrestricted, we hope for that, but I also admit that the fight may already be lost. So what do? You don't wait until the system decides what your money can do. You restructure how your money flows. Now, while you still can, instead of letting every euro flow through a system designed for maximum visibility and control, you route your everyday spending through a system that actually gives value back to you, constantly, automatically. So as first and foremost, you should get familiar with cryptocurrencies, which allow you to secure the majority of your money and where only you have access to it. Decentralized wallet, stablecoins like USDT, USDC, and you can sleep better. And then all you need is a way to handle your crypto in real life, just like cash, so you can go shopping. That's what ToonPay is built for. A payment app, you buy groceries, pay for subscriptions, do the same things as always, but instead of your money disappearing into a bank's margin, the system even gives you a percentage back as cashback. Think about what Professor Rieck describes. A future in which your money could expire only works in certain places, and you can only buy approved things. And now compare that with a system where your everyday spending turns into rewards. Designed to grow without restrictions, you can do whatever you want with it. Here is my suggestion, and I'm saying the same thing Professor Rieck says in his video. Study monetary systems. That's no longer an option. Also check out his videos. I'll also link it in the video description. Read his book, Princely Money, Fiat Money, Bitcoin. If you want the deep version, read the Wirtschaftswoche article about the poisoned apple. Read netzpolitik.org. Research on surveillance potential. Read the analysis. Buy from the Cato Institute about the disappearance of financial privacy. Read the official questions from the EU Parliament to the ECB. Then ask yourself, will the money in my bank account still actually be money in 5 years? Or will it just be a voucher that is monitored, restricted, and programmed by someone else? If you start moving in a different direction, The starter card worth $100 with 1% cashback is included for you in the link in the description. Free of charge. And definitely subscribe to the channel because this series is just getting started and the next developments will be relevant. You'll find links in the description as well as a step-by-step guide. See you soon.